My name is Cannon.
And I'm Brandon.
Today we are both going to tell you about setting a bike up on the dyno and the main crucial points that you should look out for when setting a bike up. The number one thing that I believe is crucial when setting a bike up is rear tire placement in line to the actual dyno wheel, and also securing the bike down properly so that it will not go anywhere when you are doing your dyno run.
Another thing you need to be looking for is whenever it's on, you want to make sure that the wheel is back just a little bit, because whenever you're doing your accelerations, the bike is going to want to lurch forward. And also another thing is these hoses over here. You can't quite see them, but you're going to want to make sure that these hoses are clear of any sprockets, belts, and you're going to want to have high temperature hoses so that they're not going to melt on you and smell terrible.
And you'll also notice that right here we put in this long bungee strap to grab this one hose, and that is to keep it off of the dyno wheel, because if that were to get sucked up, it would rip underneath the bike and potentially cause a lot of injuries. One main crucial tool when using a dyno that a lot of shops will use is what we call the air sniffer. We will not be using it on this bike because it cannot get past the catalytic converter, but what you will do is you hook up this machine right here. As you can see, we have a long air hose running to an air pressure system. When we turn it on, air flows through the machine and out here, creating a vacuum through this hose, and it will be pulling in the exhaust from the bike. But since we cannot get past the catalytic converter on this Harley, we will not be using it. But what it allows the dealerships to do is read the carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide levels that are coming out of the exhaust, and to make sure that they are compliant with that state's rules and regulations.
And over here in the corner, of course, we have fans. We need as many fans as we can to keep that engine cool. And over here, if you don't have a fuel tank on your bike, this can actually pressurize the fuel. Most bikes can have around 45 pounds. 40
to 45 pounds to perfectly push fuel through the ignition system.
Yep.
And everything.
That's what this little pump does, just pushes fuel into the bike so that you don't need a tank on it.
And also the fans are used because when you are riding, the bike is moving through air and fresh air, cool air, so the fans simulate that, because we are just in a room with stagnant air and no air is allowed to move across the motor, cooling it off effectively, and this is our only way to actually be able to do that.
And it also helps push the exhaust fumes.
Yes, and it also actually helps push the exhaust fumes back to the back of the bike where we are standing more in the front of the bike, trying to stay away from the rear. It also helps us stay away from carbon monoxide asphyxiation. I'm going to tell you one more crucial thing that you need to make sure that you do before you start your dyno run. You need to run the bike in first gear, just very slowly, get the rear tire spinning to make sure that that rear tire will not move and the bike is not going to go anywhere. And you want to do this at a very low speed in first gear, because if the bike does get away from you or something happens, this rear tire is not moving near as fast as it would be if you were in third gear at even a quarter throttle, where you would be going probably 30 to 45 miles an hour right there. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn your key on, you're going to start the bike, and up, put it into gear.
You want to warm up the bike, but before you do that, you're going to want to enter some credentials into the computer here. So if you come up here just real quick, we check the red line. It red line's about $5.5 grand.
Yep.
So we put all that in. Speed tires rated around 150-ish, so we also plug that in. Plug fires every 180 degrees. Since we're here in the Midwest, we're going to set the altitude to about 15
to 1700, depending on where you're at. We're about 1500 right here.
And that's all we need, so we just press OK. And now we're at this screen. This screen, it'll tell you your air fuel mixture if we had the air sniffer on, but unfortunately this bike, we can't do that. So all we're going to get is horsepower readings and torque readings. And that's it.
On this dyno, we have this nifty little device right here, and this allows us to control what the dyno is doing while we're on the bike, and it allows us to have full control of the rear tire. Our red button is a brake. If I hit that, you can hear that brake engage, and if I hit it again, you can hear it disengage. What that does is it actually is the dyno slowing the rear tire down, and it's not the bike itself, so it does not do any harm to the engine. But because this dyno is a large mass moving so fast, when you are done doing your dyno run, you want to make sure not to downshift. Let's say you are in third gear. If you were to downshift and then let off the clutch, and that dyno is already spinning at 75 miles an hour, in second gear, there's no way your bike's going to be doing 75 miles an hour. Them gears will not mesh together correctly, and you are going to destroy something in your transmission. Another thing that I'm going to go over is when to start a dyno run. You want, like Brandon said, you want to make sure the bike is all warmed up. You want to make sure that you can't really touch the side of the engine case or anything like that, and that you are fully ensured that the bike is ready to be truly ripped on and beaten for a second. When you are ready to start your run, you're going to start the bike up like I did previously. You'll shift through your first gear and your second gear, get into third gear, and what you're going to let the bike do is just level out right at about 2,000 RPMs, a little bit lower if you can, like this Harley, since it redlines at about 5,500 RPMs. I'll try getting it to about 1,500, and then I will get ready to rip on it. Right before I go to open up the throttle all the way, I let the bike even out at that 1,500 RPMs, and then I make sure to hit this green button. What it does is it starts a sampling process on the computer, and the computer is then making calculations for everything that is going on this dyno. Once the bike redlines, and we call it floating the valves, you want to let off the gas, let the bike just coast on the dyno for a little bit, pull in the clutch, and hit the red button. That will start to disengage the dyno. And as you can see, it truly didn't put up a run. That is not a run that we've done yet. But that is what will happen after you are done with your full run. It'll give you your full readings, and then you can go through, you can find out your top speed, your horsepower, and your torque. Now that we have got our bike all set up and everything, it's all strapped down, we got all our information in the computer, we can begin to do a dyno run. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start the bike up. I'm going to get it into third gear, and then I'm going to let it go down to that 1,500 RPMs, then I'm going to start the dyno run. I will begin that now.
Horsepower.
That's it. This demonstrated is what we call a single gear run, where we pick a gear, usually third or fourth gear, because that's normally the closest 1-to-1 ratio when you are within the transmission when you are driving. So that's usually the easiest one that we do when we are checking a dyno, because that is the most efficient power delivery that we are going to get to the ground. Another way that we can do it is we can do an all gear run, where we get the bike rolling in first gear, then we get it into second, and now in second gear we will go down to our 2,000 RPMs or whatever it is, and then what we do is we start our dyno run, and we literally run it all the way through every single gear, from second gear up through 6 if it has 6. And then once you redline it in your 6th gear, then you are going to finish your dyno run, hit your brake, and then you are over with it. What this will do is it'll kind of let you see how your power is built up through each gear and how much power is lost, let's say, between your 2nd gear and your 4th gear. And it'll also show you how much torque difference is produced between your 2nd gear and your 4th gear. And it will allow you to see if power is built up over time, or if it's constant throughout every single gear in the transmission.